Well, the Portuguese Grand Prix at the Algarve International Circuit was the most eventful of F1 races we've seen in recent times. Well, it was a race, and we're here to discuss it. So, Laura, firstly, how are you feeling, and have you got any brief thoughts on the race before we begin?
So no brief thoughts on the race before we begin. All I'm going to say is this one I did pretty well on the Fantasy Formula One. So if anybody's on that as well, feel free to join my group. But yes, it was a partially exciting race, I would say. But I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment.
No, it did. It definitely had its moments, and I think we might as well start with the obvious, or start with the talking point. So obviously we had the Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, then Verstappen taking Hamilton, and then everyone took Bottas, and that was about it after a third of the race. What were your thoughts on those overtakes and those opening couple of laps, opening 10 to 20 laps of the race?
So it was very enjoyable to watch. Obviously, you're looking at the start with bated breath and going, right, okay, who's going to overtake who? Who's going to get dragged down the straight? But as they went down, obviously, Valtteri just dropped back, and Max ended up overtaking Lewis. Lewis then came back at Max with an incredible overtake around the outside, and it was good to watch them. It was absolutely fantastic, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a good race, and they're all going to be up there in the front. But unfortunately, it kind of died down after that. Up the front, there was no more sort of racing for position, unless something went up drastically wrong again, like we got a safety car, which we didn't. So yeah, there was all the excitement at the start, but it died down fairly quickly, I think.
No, it did. And I was watching, it was almost like, well, we've had two exciting races. I suppose we're probably due a bit of a dual one. It's like we said prior to pod, it's the typical F1 2020. There was a little bit of excitement for about a lap, and then Hamilton ended up winning with Bottas and Verstappen on the podium with him.
Yeah.
That was that. I'm glad that we had obviously Verstappen in second. I know we didn't get the fastest lap, which we will get onto, but it was nice to go, well, we're going to get that title fight. We're going to get that 1-2. I can't see Bottas and Perez as the most probable challengers to that two. I can't see that happening. So it looks like we are going to get that two, and it looks like it's probably going to be Hamilton, Verstappen trading wins.
Yeah.
At least I hope.
I mean, I think coming away from sort of the Verstappen Hamilton fight, we've for the first three races of this season, looking at Lando Norris. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
He's incredible. He's done absolutely amazing. And can you imagine next year if we've got up the front, we've got Lewis, George Russell, and Lando Norris? That's going to be one to look for, I think.
I wrote down, obviously, Lando, he's finished in the top 5 in all 3 races so far. I know Hamilton and Verstappen have as well. But for Lando Norris and the McLaren, it's not a title contending team. It's just not a midfield team. But in one of those sort of a threshold of third place to be top 5 every single race so far, he's looking really, really good. And he's almost, I know Ricciardo's new to the team, and Ricciardo scored points in every race as well, and they're the only team that have done that with both their drivers. But he's going toe to toe with one of the best drivers on the grid, and he's doing really, really well, and he's challenging. And that podium last time out, I think there's going to be quite a few more of them to come.
Yeah, well, let's hope. I think he's up to third in the championship. I don't like quoting things now because I've got a couple of them wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's up to third in the championship, and he's overtaken Bottas now. So yeah, let's see him going forward. Hopefully, I'll get a couple of podiums this year. He definitely deserves it. His driving has improved, and his maturity's definitely improved this year as well. So he deserves it. He's done very, very well.
I know he does, and I know he's not part of a Mercedes junior program, but he's driving under a Mercedes power unit. Everyone's saying George Russell's probably going to be the next British Mercedes world champion, but who's saying Lando Norris can't jump in there? I know Russell's got the potential, but so's Norris, and Norris is younger.
100%. Yeah, they both do. And it will be, well, hopefully without the vehicle difference, because next year we're going to have a massive change. We'll have what we want to watch between Lewis and Max, between Lando and George.
I'd love a Lando Norris world champion in a McLaren. I think every single British fan would.
Yes.
It would be fantastic.
I definitely would. Although I've got to admit, I'm 100% a George fan. So.
Well, it's one of them. I think they're both likable characters. So it's be unfair to go against. It's not like most of the grid where you could probably pick someone out you don't like. Lando and George, they're both just genuinely nice people who we want to see succeed. And I think they'll both definitely be race winners at the very least. But no, sticking with that sort of that front of the grid or front of the grid. Obviously, Max Verstappen now in 3 races, in the last 2 races, he's lost a win, he's lost a pole position, and he's lost the fastest lap. which I found quite intriguing to sort of read. I know obviously the win was at Bahrain first time out, and then Poland the fastest lap this time out.
All the track limits as well.
Is it because Red Bull aren't reading the rules, or is there an agenda against Max Verstappen?
I don't think there's an agenda against Max Verstappen.
No.
Let's be honest, a lot of people are annoyed that Lewis was using, or Mercedes in general, were using track limits. But the places where they were using the track limits, there were no limits. So they used that. They were very, very clever with that. It was just, I think it may be unfortunate where Max has come off. And he's gone over the track limits in those areas. He's pushing himself pretty hard, and it's been to his detriment the last 3 times, unfortunately, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. But it's one of those that you look at and you go, are they doing it against him? Are they trying to get him to knock down? But I don't see that happening. It's just a bit of an awkward coincidence, I think.
It is, and everyone always thinks there's an agenda against people that do sort of have little things taken off them. But it could be one of them where Red Bull simply haven't read the rule book, and Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes have. And yeah, I don't worry for the integrity of a championship, but you don't want to get to the final race, have 1 or 2 points in it, and you go, well, if you'd read track limits in the first round, the second round, or the third round, you probably would have won the championship.
Yeah.
So is it these small errors that make the difference between Red Bull and Mercedes, the difference between a good team and, a 7 to 8 time world championship team?
Well, let's hope not. Because I don't want to see a championship won on errors by the second person. But it is at the moment small errors that they're making. And they, from what was said, the Red Bull had the fastest car. Now, Mercedes have done a lot of work, and I can imagine they've been very, very busy in that garage because that car is not slow or as slow as it was anymore. But yeah, let's hope he keeps it on the track a little bit better, and they can keep kind between each other about track limits as well, because I know they're a little bit annoyed about it.
Oh, no, I mean, I would be too, but I suppose it's one of them. If it's a rule, it's a rule. And you've got to adhere to it. Well, sticking with Red Bull race, obviously Sergio Perez, he's looking a lot better than Gasly and Albon and Danny Kvyat, and obviously previous second seat drivers Red Bull have looked. After that bit of a naff start, being overtaken by Norris, after he finally got past Norris, his race pace was as good as the top 3. Do you think that sort of shows a sign of it's probably not too long until we see a Checo Perez podium in a Red Bull suit?
Well, you would expect so, wouldn't you? However, I'm not too sure. While he has got race pace, he does drop behind and he's not getting up to the top. It's a little bit of a Bottas situation over again, and he's not exactly where we want to see him. It's what this Red Bull curse. As soon as somebody gets in a Red Bull, only Max knows how to drive it. And it seems to be that he is doing slightly better, but then he has been in a very fast car last year with a Mercedes engine, so he might know how to handle and deal with it slightly better. But he's not doing the job that he's supposed to be doing for Max at the moment. Max is way out there in the front, and he needs his second teammate to help him so they can both win this championship, and the team can as well.
I think, and I know obviously his job is to sort of help Max take the fight to the Mercedes, and I do sort of look at the 3 races so far. Obviously, the first race, he had a really good fight back from starting from the pit lane, scored some good points. Second race, I think he was one of the first Red Bulls to out-qualify Max since the Daniel Ricciardo days, I believe. And then obviously in this race, I know 4th, it's like, well, if you've got Bottas, Hamilton and Verstappen, the 4th is the best you're going to get. So it's not the worst, but he wants to be, his competition for me is his target is to beat Bottas, I think. And then you've got Verstappen to then beat Hamilton. I think that's what it's going to boil down to for the constructors, because he's not going to win the World Championship.
No, well, I don't think his mindset is there. His mindset is to win the World Championship. He's not battling his next person on track at the moment. He's battling the front, and he's not there. Yeah. So he needs to get himself there before he can engage in that battle. And I hope he does. I really hope he does, because we don't want another year where Lewis Hamilton wins every single race and we know what we're watching again and again, waiting for something to change again next year. I really do hope he gets up the front. He's been a consistent, brilliant driver. He's got a brilliant car behind him. And yeah, it could be exciting watching those 2 at the front. But oh my days, when they're both together, don't you get a little bit nervous? I do. So
I do, yeah, but I am really looking forward to 6 or 7 races down the line, potentially around the Monaco, that sort of Grand Prix time. It's like, right, we've got 2 Mercedes, we've got 2 Red Bulls. Lando Norris is putting in good performances. Daniel Ricciardo at some point is, we know he's a good driver. We know he's got a good car. Ferrari are getting better. It's like, at what point can we go, right, there's 8 people that can get on the podium realistically here? Because I don't think we're that far off, I hope. Or at least I do hope we're not. And at what point do you go, right, who's going to win this race, because it's not going to be Lewis or Max. It could be someone else. That's when F1 becomes exciting again, or becomes more exciting for the fans. But no, well,
I'd like to see Gasly on the podium this year.
Yeah, in that
His driving's been incredible too.
Well, look, I like to see Yuki Tsunoda in the same car. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, there is lots of teams that are doing really well and are outperforming what we did initially expect. One team that isn't, though, and it is sort of Checo's old team, it's that Aston Martin. Now, I do worry that they really don't look very good. If I'm being honest, they look like they're the 7th best team on the grid at the moment, ahead of obviously Alfa, Haas, and Williams.
Yeah, the car isn't great, is it?
No.
I think they've had a few problems with it, and they were alongside who was it? I can't even think about who it was now. They're alongside some of the lower teams, and that's just not where they want to be. Obviously, Vettel went over from Ferrari thinking, well, we could have another shot at a world champion here because we've got a team coming in who want to make a big impression, and unfortunately, that impression hasn't been made. I mean, Stroll just didn't make it this week. Vettel did a lot better than Stroll this week, so it would be good to see if they're having issues, if they're going to change them. I mean, we're only the 3rd race of the year, so we can change them. It could be engine issues at the moment. We don't really know. Not a lot has been said. So yeah, we'll look forward to hopefully seeing those a little bit further up the track and a bit more competitive, but they're definitely mid-range. They're not going to be up the front.
No, I think it's probably just for pink. I think if I went back to pink instead of green, that was all it was. But I mean, obviously, Aston are a new team. Alpine are a newish team as well. And they got their first double point score. Alonso showed some signs of, the Fernando Alonso from the mid-2000s. And it's like, well, these guys, like, they could progress to be something quite good. Again, I don't think Alpine are going to be challenging for wins, but there's a podium within that car. And the way Alonso and Ocon especially, he surprised me massively. The way they've been driving it, it doesn't look like they've lost too much of that Renault power they've had at the back end of last season.
Yeah, Alonso probably was the only excitement, I would say, in the second half of the race. So he had a few overtakes at the end, and unfortunately, I don't know what it was about this race, but we weren't watching the things that were going on, and I think it made the race more dull. So in the full race, you weren't watching what was actually happening and the people who were actually overtaking. I don't know what happened with the cameras, but like you said, they're both doing great. It's nice to see Alonso back up there again, but Ocon being the younger one, I want to see him pull through. I want to see him challenging as well, because he's got a lot of his younger teammates. I say teammates, they've raced together for years on the grid at the moment, and there's a lot of banter there, and I think he needs to pull his pants up and get on with it for him.
No, definitely. But it is nice to see he's out-qualified Alonso twice now, and Alonso had a brilliant streak until it. And just sort of finally touching, I wasn't going to mention George Russell, but it just came into my head when I mentioned the qualifying. Obviously, he had his best qualifying performance, 11th. And I'll tell you what, if there's ever such an anti-climax, I was like, Russell's going to score points this weekend. And my word, did he drop off. And I watched George Russell, and every single qualifying in recent memory for me, it's like, he's going to do well here, he's going to get points here. And he always seems to drop off on a Sunday. And a lot of the time, he seems to end up below. I know he didn't this weekend, but you got the likes of Latifi and the 2 Alfa Romeos that always seem to end up relatively close, if not ahead of him. And it's like, is the Williams car, does it not have any race pace, or is George Russell just a one lap wonder almost?
I think he's an incredible driver. I said I was a Russell fan before. I think he's an incredible driver, and he can prove that when he's on the track with other cars. And look at him overtaking Bottas in Bahrain last year. That was an amazing move. But I just don't think he's in the right car for him. While he is pushing the Williams, and he keeps saying he's pushing the Williams and that they've got things to work on, they can move forward, I don't see him getting much past 15th, really, in a race. For the points wise, I'd love to see him get points, but at the same time, I'm not sure whether that's going to happen in a Williams.
I do. Well, he'll have spent obviously the end of this year, and this is obviously arguing or suggesting that he will move on from Williams, which I think is the general consensus. He'll have spent 3 years in a car and not scored any points. And I know Latifi probably won't have. I know Kubica scored 1 point when, I can't remember who it was, but when he was sort of handed a point, I think it was Raikkonen, who had a time penalty after the race. But it's like 3 years in a car to not score a point. It's one of them. It's like you just sort of hope, even if it comes down to the last race in Abu Dhabi or in Jeddah or in Brazil, and it's like, just score a point for us, George. Just so
it would be nice.
One in a Williams, even if it's one. But no, and no, I saw a stat as well. So I think everyone saw a stat at the end of the race. This is Bottas, Hamilton, and Verstappen is now the most common podium in F1 history. with 15 podiums. I've got a question for you, Laura. Do you know what the second most common podium in F1 history is, or do you know what it could be?
Oh my days. Has it got Michael Schumacher in it?
No, it does have Lewis Hamilton in it, though.
Does it?
It does,
Okay.
yeah. And it was 14
I'm
as
not
well.
going to take a guess because I'd be terribly wrong.
Well, do you know who one of the two might be? One of them is still on the grid and one of them isn't.
Vettel?
Yeah. Hamilton, Vettel, and Rosberg shared the podium 14 times. I'm going to assume that was probably all during Hamilton and Rosberg's Mercedes days, and made a 1-2 pretty much every single race for 3 years. And then Vettel in the Ferrari, who come in third, much like Verstappen is now, actually.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, saying that. But no, Laura, is there anything we haven't touched on the Portuguese Grand Prix you want to bring up?
I don't think so. It's just the only thing I will say in regards to the Williams as well. Latifi has really picked up his game. He's not far away from George now. And last year I was saying he doesn't deserve to be on the track with where he was. And this year he does. He's doing really, really well in that Williams car. So I look forward to seeing him push George as well, because someone needs to push George out there. But apart from that, no, there's nothing else I want to say about the race last week.
I will say one thing actually. I've not always been against these sort of pay to drive drivers, Lance Stroll, Nicholas Latifi. However, now we've seen Nikita Mazepin on the track, I feel like Nicholas Latifi is almost on Lewis Hamilton levels in comparison. To be almost a minute behind your teammate, to always be lapped, by every car on the track, a minute behind your teammate. In the Haas car, it's probably one of the slowest cars we've ever seen. I know they're never going to score points, but at least be relatively close to Schumacher. But I do worry that Mazepin's going to be on the grid for quite a long time to come, and he's going to be 20th for quite a long time to come. And it just feels like a bit of a wasted seat when you've got Callum Eilert, Robert Schwartzman, or pretty much any F2 driver who'd be willing to take it. But then I suppose that's the advantages of having money.
Yeah, and let's be honest about it. Like, we can joke and laugh about Mazepin, whatever you want to say about it, but quite frankly, it's downright dangerous. And I think the FIA really need to have a little look at this, because he can't continue racing because he's putting the other drivers at risk, and that's not acceptable.
Well, we have the first race, the first corner of the season, the first few corners. That was him gone. Second race, I know he's spanning the second race, but I know obviously I've been instant with Checo this time out with the blue flags. There's a lot going on for someone in a car that realistically should be getting out of people's way. As silly as it seems, it's like, you're driving, you're not going to win, but get out of the way. Like, if someone's coming past, because I don't know if you remember Ocon a few years ago, Verstappen at Brazil, when Ocon was trying to unlap himself, and it cost Verstappen the win. Obviously, I worry that we're going to get to a point later on in the season, potentially when we travel to Australia, and you've got Hamilton and Verstappen going for a really important win, and he's that far behind that he just causes a problem.
I think it's going to happen. Yeah, at some point, I think it's going to happen. Yeah, let's even if we say that it's not intentional, which we really, really hope that it isn't intentional, his driving in that way, then he just doesn't have the talent that he needs to be on a Formula One track with Formula One car.
And we'll end on a positive note, because I realised how negative we made that.
Yeah.
We have a quick turnaround to the next race, Spain, obviously. Well, I mean, the interviews are tomorrow. It starts on Friday. The Grand Prix is on Sunday. Have you got an early prediction for the Spanish Grand Prix?
I don't have a prediction for it. However, I think the Mercedes are going to be strong again, very similar to Portugal. So nice to see a good race going on with them. I mean, I think I'm going to end up calling Bottas Mr. Saturday, actually, after George, because he's the one that ends up getting the poles for it, and Lewis Hamilton doesn't seem so bothered about them at the moment, although he wants to get 100th, so that would be nice.
I do think, I think a Hamilton 100th pole, a Hamilton, what is it, 97th, 98th win or something now? I think that's
absolutely insane.
That's probably, that to me, that's how Mercedes do well in Spain. Since 2016, Mercedes do well in Spain. So that's my expectation is a Hamilton everything. I hope I'm wrong though, but oh well. We'll have to see how it goes. Laura, have a lovely week. Thank you for coming on, and to all the followers, to all the fans, thank you for listening again, and we will speak to you next week.
Great. See you later.